Hey guys, how are you?
Great.
Good.
Thank you.
So to start, I want to ask all of you, and we can go Josie and then go to Brendan and Jake.
Sure.
With taking on a Superman story, like I know season one, and it was so good because it was like taking on a younger Superman, which we only ever really got a taste of that in like later seasons of Smallville. And so it's nice to see like a younger Clark kind of take on the mantle. But did you guys have any reservations going into season two, knowing that now not only were you moving into more like seasoned Superman territory, but you also had fans who came to this show first and foremost and were like, well, this is my Superman. And so you also had that on top of it.
I mean, I don't think reservations so much as like challenges and excitement because season one was kind of a little bit more fleshed out because that was the pitch that got us greenlit and got us picked up. So we kind of knew like what characters were going to come in. Like we roughly had an idea of like where our midpoint was going to be, where the turns were going to be. But season two was just the words Supergirl and Krypton question mark like on a piece of paper. And so I think it actually freed us up a lot to go into it knowing that we had so much fun in season one, that we could just really build out the world as much as we wanted and go as big as we possibly could. Like we're going to space, like it's going to be a huge season. So yeah, so I wouldn't say reservations. I would say like exciting to like build the story more and also to break our characters a little bit, to break their hearts and to break their relationships a little bit.
I wasn't scared about disappointing existing fans of the show until just now. when you brought up that positive, now I've got the One Fear t-shirt on. So we wrote and produced these as like as one sprint, right? It was like 10-episode season orders that came at once. So there was so much continuity going in that we really benefited, I think, from the momentum of season one.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, we cracked that. We know what show we're making. We've like really dialed in on who these characters are. We've done enough records with the actors that we're writing to their versions of the characters instead of like the less specific versions of the characters that we pitched. So we had all hands on deck. Everybody knew how to make our show. And so not knowing what was happening became like thrilling. Because we got to figure it out with our team of very talented writers and artists and like explore new territory. Season one, I think, was weirdly more high pressure because it all rode on season one, whether people are going to like the show.
Yeah.
And then additionally, we had to figure out how to make it. Like Josie said, we pitched it in pretty substantial detail. So it was like trying to live up to something, promises that we'd made. And in season two, we hadn't made promises. We just said Supergirl and done jazz hands. So we got to explore, and that was really joyful. It was really fun letting the writers just like run wild over the universe and pitch things. Everybody was pitching stuff that they were like a little bit afraid to pitch, which is like how you know that you're in like is this sane, is like when you know you're in the good spot. So season two was really joyful for me right up until you told me that it could fail and disappoint everyone who liked the show, and now I'm gonna live in fear for the rest of this month.
I mean, it's same for me, except I'm not scared now.
You have no fear.
Has no fear.
Yeah.
Real Daredevil situation over here.
Yeah.
There's no fear over there. Well, and I also love, I said this in the cast room, but I love that Superman is a wife guy. That's my way of describing Superman.
Yes.
In every case, he's just a wife guy, like because he loves his wife so much. And I really love this Lois and Clark because I think it is a Lois who is not afraid to show her emotions, which a lot of the times we do have a Lois Lane who is so gung-ho about being a journalist. She loses those emotions. And you also have Clark who's like, I think it was in episode 8 where he's like, oh no, Lois, and brought her like a bunch of flowers in a just because. And so Ripper was their 1 week anniversary. I was like, oh my God. But when you guys are approaching that relationship, was there anything back in season one and heading into season two that you guys knew like, okay, we have to keep it like this, otherwise pitchforks will be at our door if it's Lois and Superman?
You're just stressing Jake. Yeah, just stressing Jake out.
Goal now is just
I mean, I think it's the same thing of just we're such big fans of these characters and of Lois and Clark and their relationship, period, that you know, nothing was ever couched in terms of like limitations of like, okay, we have to hold back. It was always like, okay, how do we milk this? Okay, what's the most romantic thing, or you know, what makes sense as their next step in their relationship? Like we wanted that to feel organic. And you know, for Lois and Clark, it's also showing, I think one of the most romantic things is showing your vulnerabilities. And I think that's a lot of times when like romance falls flat in something, it's because yeah, somebody's personality is just gung ho, or somebody's personality is just action hero. But for Lois and Clark, they're human. They have fears. They make bad decisions. They're
Mhm.
flawed. There's going to be some more bad decision making in season 2. The bad decisions have not stopped. Really, really bad decisions are going to be made. But that's why you root for them and you love them, is because they are people. They're not just icons. And so that was the core of making them work, making them people.
The one time the pitchforks came out in season 1 really surprised me. So going in, like this goes back to pilot and development.
Surprised they didn't come out soon.
Brendan had this rule that like Clark can't lie to Lois for like more than a few episodes because Superman can't be like a sociopath, right?
Yeah.
Smart.
And Josie's rule is like
Yes.
Lois Lane is not an idiot. Lois Lane
Yes.
has to figure it out. And we were like, yeah, so like Clark and Lois have to be reasonable human beings who are honest with each other and have the powers of observation. And so to all of us, that naturally led to Lois being like, I know, you're not going to tell me, I'm going to make you.
Mhm.
And the internet had such a big fight about that. I was shocked because I was like, she's
Yes.
perfectly within her rights. Lois Lane did nothing wrong. And in fact, we were really focused on like, okay, how's he going to earn her trust back in 6? We're like, he's going to need to get his shirt shot off. But like, so I was really surprised, and we had a joke sometimes in the room when we'd get exec notes that were like Lois isn't likable or whatever, and the joke was, is it problematic to write a woman?
Yeah, I do think I wrote a piece that was like, yeah, Lois Lane should figure it out. She's an investigative reporter. Like it's
Yeah. She's
doesn't
smart. She wins a Pulitzer eventually.
Yeah, well, and we would compare it to Batman in the Room. Like if it's a Batman Superman show, and Lois Lane is our Batman. She's the
Yeah.
world's greatest detective.
Mhm.
She is vengeance. She
Yeah.
is the night. She's justice, where Clark is mercy. But yeah, so it was like being true to those characters was our number one concern, and it didn't occur to me that people would get mad at Lois for doing what she's already done in Superman 2.
Yeah. Well, they forget about Niagara Falls.
Oh yeah. There's a lot. She jumps off a lot of things.
Yeah, they forgot about Dre. That's the real problem.
Yeah.
But thank you guys so much for talking with me. I love this show. I can't wait for people to get to see season 2. And I will defend Lois, knowing that
Thank
Clark
you.
Kent is
Yes.
Superman for the rest of my days, because it makes sense.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, Rachel.
Bye.
Everyone.